Power Rangers SPD, Power Rangers to the rescue. And then the guitar solo.
Oh my god, this season, man. I love this theme song. Let's go. Shout out to Ron Wasserman, the OG theme song guru of Power Rangers. I swear, thank you for making this a season where I can just rock out to this theme song any time of the day.
And speaking of openers, here's the new opening to Ranger Rabble.
Go, go. Ranger Rabble. Go, go. Ranger Rabble. Rabble, Rabble, Ranger Rabble.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 8 of Ranger Rabble. I'm Kyle D.
I'm Leo V, and today we are going to talk about one of the greatest seasons that I think Power Rangers has ever done, Power Rangers SPD. Spoiler alert, if you don't know anything about SPD, go away because we're talking about it. Which, this season has so many more open-ended questions now. A, because it takes place in 2025, and we're actually in 2025. So we get to actually see...
Whoa.
Yeah, we get to actually see what they thought the future was going to be like from our perspective. But especially now with Once and Always happening, and we now have Space Patrol Alpha. So now that was the beginning of what would soon be the intergalactic police force that we have come to know as Space Patrol Delta.
It was a very, very well made season, a well thought out season. I think the character arcs of all the Rangers were phenomenal.
Big time.
The amount of Rangers they had was a little on the side. You know me. Yeah. I'm a stickler for numbers, like 6. All you need is 6.
Well, and this season did a strange teaser because we got a 6th Ranger who was really technically a 7th Ranger before we got the 6th Ranger. The Omega Ranger from the future has the Roman numeral 6 on his chest. So he is sequentially the 6th Ranger, but we get him after the Shadow Ranger. So technically we got our 7th Ranger before our 6th Ranger.
And speaking of Shadow Ranger, one of my favorite suits of all time.
Oh my god. Suits in general for this season were great. I really enjoyed the motif of them. They fit the police force looking uniforms really well. And I also liked their out of suit uniforms. So like their little like half star, half jackets. Those are dope. I would buy one today. This season was based off of the Super Sentai Deca Ranger, which was, again, very police force based, but we at least got to see the Omega Ranger in and out of their Ranger outfit. So it wasn't stuck in a morph necessarily like we got in America. But oddly enough, for some reason, when they were coming up with all the episode titles for this, they decided to go with all one-word episode titles.
I did not notice that.
It was a choice that they did, but I'm not necessarily sure that it had a point to it. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button.
Yes, please do.
We appreciate that. We put out videos all the time, and you guys have quite the selection of things to watch now here on Nerd Daddy Productions. So if you like what you see, it takes 2 seconds to hit that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it.
Let's dive in. Let's get buttery.
Buttery. So we open up with our 3 cadets. They're not even Rangers yet. We have Sid, Bridge, and Sky, and they are essentially training to become Rangers. So they are in the SPD Academy essentially as cadets. We also get to meet Kat Manx, who is the head technological guru for the season. And we also get to meet Boom, the Three Stooges comedy relief of the season, always getting exploded by things and whatnot. But
I loved Boom.
This would be the first of his many returns, because he came back in at least 2 other seasons. So also at SPD we have Doggy Kruger, who is by far the greatest mentor.
Yes.
I think for me personally.
Yeah, Doggy Kruger he's a badass, and he's played by legendary Samoan actor John Tui.
Dagger on himself.
Dude, he's a tough sumbitch, man.
Yeah. Also at SPD, we get our first look at the A Squad, which may look familiar because these are some reused props from a previous season.
My second favorite season. In space.
Yeah, they added a little accents to the, I think, like the top of the helmet. There was a little extra thing, and it kind of looked like they were already in their own kind of SWAT mode, based on the upgrades that they get later on in the season. But the suits themselves are actually not terrible, except for the unnecessary big letter A's that are on their shoulder and like on their knee pads, that just to remind you that they're the A Squad. But these were very basic, not colorful costumes. The only real color that was there was their helmets. You had a little bit of color in their guns, and then I think like their back piece was whatever their color was, but very briefly. We also kind of get to see our main villain for the season, Emperor Grum. He is played by soon-to-be Mentor G from Power Rangers Samurai. So this was his big entrance into the Power Ranger universe. The A Squad goes off to fight Grum, which leaves the Earth not having defenses at the moment. So our cadets get promoted to B Squad, and they're given their morphers and sent out essentially to catch a couple of thieves.
Was there a character named Piggy in this season?
Yes, there was. Yes, there was.
I thought so. He was like an alien-looking thing, right?
Like he had a porcupine.
Yes.
Like weird snot coming out of its face holes. Yes, Piggy was essentially a scrapper. So he would find stuff that was around and essentially sell it to anybody who was looking for things. So in this version of 2025, aliens and humans share the planet. So there is a lot of alien refugees who essentially are looking for anything they can to survive. Where we would eventually meet Jack and Z. So they're Robin Hooding some clothes from a store or trucks and stealing it to essentially give to people who need it. And I guess the 3 cadets are put in charge of bringing them in, which is how our Rangers all get to know each other. Now, before I forget to mention this, all of our Rangers have some sort of like civilian superpower. Sid, the Pink Ranger, can essentially make her fist or feet harder, like rock, change the atomic structure of her fists. Sky, the Blue Ranger, can produce force fields. Bridge, the Green Ranger, is psychometry. So he can read the aura of people around him. Z can multiply herself, so she can do clones and sporadically put them places. And Jack can go through walls. They end up catching Z and Jack and bring them into headquarters, and they are offered the opportunity to join SPD because they were doing the right thing, but not necessarily the right thing. Like they're helping people but stealing to do it. So it's a moral gray area in that aspect. They are given the opportunity. Z says yes, and Jack's like, nah, bro, I want no part of this. I don't want to be a police officer. Not my jam.
Yeah.
And it's not until Z is out in the field in trouble where Jack is like, okay, like I gotta go help my friend because I can't just sit here and let her get attacked. Yeah. We meet our putties for the season, which are the Crybots, which are these kind of blue metallic-y robots. Not necessarily the best of like putties. There's like an upgrade where it gets like a blue head and it's supposed to be a little bit more powerful, and then there's an orange head upgrade, so it's supposed to be even more super putty, but like meh, whatever. So the monster makes itself grow, and the A Squad comes back to deal with it in the Megazord.
We're not gonna fight that thing? Thank you.
Because B Squad is not up to snuff just yet. They're not really the protectors. They were just kind of filling in. Our bad guy, Grum, has two people essentially that work with him. We have Broodwing, who is this head in a jar bat kind of thing. Whatever that's supposed to be. And this little girl who has three names throughout the season, either Moira, Mora, or when she gets bigger, she's Morgana. So as far as Zords go, they have the Delta Runners, which are essentially different police vehicles that transform into the Delta Squad Megazord. Mm-hmm. And this was, I want to say, one of the first Megazords that was very CGI. Is the word I'm looking for. It was very agile because computers could make it do whatever it wanted. Mm-hmm. They have this dog robot that was supposed to be put down for out of commission, and then they give him upgrades to become a canine cannon, which is very, very silly. But
there's a simple explanation for that.
No, there isn't. It makes no sense. They had to put a canine unit in for the police, so let's just make it a robot.
Fuck it, right? Why not?
We already have a dog running the unit, so we through one of our next story-filled episodes, we get to meet this little kid named Sam, who also has a superpower. He can kind of teleport things short distances, and essentially has this like ball of light power where he can turn into a ball of light. Okay.
I mean, I can say it or you can say it.
Go ahead.
There's a simple explanation for that.
So Z tries to make friends with him. Kid ends up making friends with Mora or Moira, whatever the little girl's name is, and she kind of like tricks him into using his superpowers for evil. So throughout all of that, Z finally gets through to him and is like, "You're working with the bad guys, bro. Like, come hang out with us. It's gonna be fine." And they make him like an honorary SPD little kid baby. Good job, kid. You're a deputy ranger. So as they're just giving out ranger powers, we get to the Shadow Ranger.
Oh.
Be still my fucking heart, Doggy Kruger. They gave this man such an awful backstory. He was essentially the last creature of his planet to survive one of Grum's attacks. Yes. They like decimated his planet, and General Banog came and they killed his wife, and he was the last one. Banog ends up coming back and like wants to fight Kruger, and he's like, "I don't think so, bro. Like I'm not fighting you right now. Like, I can't." And so he kidnaps Kat instead. Banog's like, "All right, you don't want to fight me? Now I'm going to kidnap somebody else from you. I already took your wife. Now I'm going to take your friend. So to save Cat, Doggy is giving me the Shadow Morpher, and he has to essentially slay through 100 Crybots.
Shadow Rangers!
Before Banog will let her go. And let me tell you, this fucking sequence. Ah! Doggy Kruger just, with his Shadow Saber, just fucking slashes through these guys, no fucking problem. Fucking like butter. He's just fucking slicing through. Fucking buttery sweet. I really love this costume. I love this suit. It's got like a light blue, gray kind of color to it, but also black and red, which is kind of like, I'm in charge because I've got some red in here, but also I'm not really associated with them per se. Because he's got, all the suits have numbers on them to represent.
There's a 00, right?
Well, technically he has 100 because he's got like the number 1, like the rest of the costumes do, and then he's got a 00 next to it.
Really?
Yeah. So he's essentially Ranger 100.
Son of a bitch. I never fucking realized that was a number. I just thought it was like the mark on his suit. It's so beautiful.
Right? I don't know how his dog face fits in that costume. It's a little smushed in there, but needless to say, the Shadow Ranger is... I'm going to go and say he's one of the strongest Rangers that we've seen to date. Somewhere after this in the story is when Moira gets turned into an adult because she hasn't been doing a good job at making effective monsters. So Grum turns her into an adult.
That's punishment?
Question mark. I think he says,
Or you will find yourself back exactly the way I found you.
And then I guess through their working together, he turned her into a kid. There's a simple explanation for that. In one of the episodes, we get our first Orange Ranger tease. We find out that Boom used to be a cadet in the Power Ranger Academy, and he was having a dream that he had become the Orange Ranger, which was the first time we would see an orange suit until Cosmic Fury, when we finally got an Orange Ranger.
Yeah, that was so seeing the suit in the dream was dope, and then when it comes back and he's just like in an orange sweatsuit.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh honey.
Oh baby boy.
Oh Boom.
In one of our next episodes, which is kind of important to the story, Morgana uses a time portal to bring an ancient Japanese monster named Katana to the future and tells it that the Power Rangers are trying to attack Japan, and this monster's job is to protect Japan. So this was where it was very apparent that we were using a Japanese show, because this episode took place super in Japan.
There's a
Oh, Disney. So
that's right. This was a Disney-fueled Power Rangers season.
Yes.
I forgot. Jetix, right? Wasn't it Disney Jetix?
Jetix.
Thanks, Disney, for almost ruining Power Rangers.
Yeah, right. All right. So there's a lot of animal hybrids in this show. The supreme commander of SPD is a guy named Birdie, who's that giant bird looking guy. They hit the nail on the head. Birdie, doggy.
By the way, Cat.
Also, a returning person. So she would later come back in Jungle Fury. She was Master Gwyn. So she was the Penguin Master in that season.
Who, Cat?
Yeah. Not like Cat, but the actress who played Cat.
No shit.
Birdie essentially kicks Kruger out of running SPD for thinking that he doesn't do a good job. And in the process of that, Grum actually comes to Earth and attacks, like, face to face. He's like, all right, I'm not doing no more monsters right now. Like, I'm gonna be the one that comes after the Earth. I'm gonna do this right. Essentially, the Rangers are struggling against him, and Kruger is the one that comes out in this fucking ATV that he's got and just fucking is like rolling around, shooting up against Grum on a motorcycle. Like, it was an unnecessary vehicle fight, but the two of them together fighting was actually fucking badass. Now we get into the actual 6th Ranger. So, Boom receives a message from 25 years in the future, essentially saying that July 11th was the day that the Earth fell to Emperor Grum. Like, that was when his attacks essentially started working. Everybody's kind of bracing for the worst, and we get a new Ranger that comes from the future to help us in our fight. And this is where we get to meet the Omega Ranger.
I liked his suit.
It was actually really cool.
It was really cool. It was very pretty.
Very pretty. I like the little the rev up thingy on his morpher, like, because his suit could also stop time in certain things. Yes. So, like, when people were shooting at him, he could boop it and, like, matrix all the bullets out of the way. He shows up with a motorcycle Zord, essentially, that the Megazord gets on top of, so it becomes a cop riding a motorcycle Zord. So by the end of meeting our 6th Ranger, we find out that they saved the future, so it's not like a super destructive future 25 years anymore. We find out that the Omega Ranger used the time portal that Morgana opened up to bring in that Japanese monster. That was the time portal that he used to get to the past. So now that is closed, he is essentially stuck in the present with the Rangers. But that suit, that suit is so pretty.
That blue is really nice in that suit.
Right, it's like a really nice blue, gold, white combo that's just really fresh. And of course, we happen to find out that the Omega Ranger's identity is actually our good friend Ball of Light Sam.
That's right. Sam became the Omega Ranger.
Right. So, in episodes previous to that, they had kind of started hinting the Ball of Light kind of like showing up and being there, but it wasn't until July 11th where he actually made himself known and was like, all right, cool, like I have to come out of Ball of Light form so I can actually fuck some shit up. We get into the Battleizer. So Cat is doing an upgrade on the Red Morpher, obviously for Battleizer's sake, it's just the Red Ranger. And of course, Sky gets all butthurt because it's only the Red Ranger getting an upgrade, and his whole thing this season is he wanted to be the Red Ranger because his father was the Red Ranger, which they actually reused a Time Force suit to kind of make it seem like he was a red Time Force Ranger.
Yes, he was
Red Time Force Ranger.
Yes, they mentioned that he was Time Force, I think, like by name.
Or they used the Time Force suit, but it's got like an SPD thing on here.
Yes,
so they make
the Silver Guardian.
Right, some sort of implication. As far as Battleizers go, it's a weird one that has like 2 modes. So the first mode is just like leg very weird, like small shin guards and like a very small like shoulder thing and like a little baby sword. And then mode 2 is a lot fucking bigger. You get fucking like hockey goalie pads on his like legs and like the giant red and blue shoulder ensemble with a giant fucking double-handed sword. In the process of this, the Rangers are fighting villains that they've already fought, and they're very confused by all of this. So Kruger sends Sky to one of their detention centers to go and talk to this one villain who might have an idea of what is going on.
Is this the episode where you can't have any kind of reflection?
Yep.
I hate that my brain went right to that.
Yep, this is where we meet Murloc, who we find out is actually responsible for the death of Sky's father. Of course, being Power Rangers, they decide to not tell him that information and let him find it out on his own, which makes him just more mad later. So he goes in and he finds out that it's actually some sort of copycat monster that is just kind of pretending to be. And in trade for this information, Murloc collects memories. So he wanted to hear Sky's worst memory. And of course, that worst memory being the last time he saw his father and his father running off to battle and never coming back. And Murloc's sitting there like getting his rocks off because he knows that he was the one who destroyed his father. So he's like, "Mwahaha, this makes this memory even better."
Doesn't he cry and then he jumps into his tear, or he uses the reflection of his tear?
Yes. So in the process of being emotional, Sky starts to cry, and Murloc uses the reflection in that tear to escape from prison. So of course, Sky is feeling very guilty that he was the one that let him escape.
This is the episode I'm thinking of. Is this where they let Jack is the Red Ranger?
Yes.
Doesn't Jack give Sky his morpher?
Yes, Jack ends up giving his morpher to Sky and being like, "Look, I know this is important to you." We eventually told Sky that was the guy that killed his father. So Jack was like, "You should bring him in as the Red Ranger." And this is one of the moments where Jack and Sky actually start to like get along and see each other eye to eye, as opposed to Sky being jealous that he's not the Red Ranger. Now we get to one of my favorite two-parters, is where we get into SWAT mode. So the Rangers they're getting along, but they're still not working together as a team. They get sent off to essentially go through like boot camp training with Sergeant Silverback. So he did do that a lot. Kat is in the process of working on these upgrades for the Rangers and needs a quantum enhancer. So they end up asking Piggy for one because he ends up being one to get his hands on these kinds of things. It turns out he's kind of been working-ish for Grum, kind of bringing him things that he needs, but also kind of being blackmailed in the process. Like, if you don't keep doing this, we're pretty much going to kill you. Back on that planet, the Rangers essentially get demoted until they can get their shit together. So they go through their boot camp, and of course, Grum's attacking the Earth, and just in time, they learn to be a team, and they get their new SWAT powers, which are so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
You get like the flak jackets with their colored numbers on them, and like the little headsets that come out of their ears. Essentially, it's like a whoop, whoop.
But now here's my thing.
What you think? Tell me your thing.
Now the helmet covers their mouth, right?
Yes.
Why the fuck do they got the little... Why? Why do they got this in the side of their helmet?
I mean, that is a fair question. They don't need
Go ahead.
that. Especially because there's no mouth. They have like a mouth area, but there was no lips. So you're essentially just talking through like a face shield at that point. But yeah, I'm not sure where they were going with that, but these outfits definitely are reminiscent of like A Squad's uniforms, except these ones have more color because they already had more colorful suits. And with this, they also get the SWAT Megazord, which fucking badass, man.
Mm-hmm.
We're not done with Rangers yet for the season. We are going to be gifted with another Ranger this episode, the SPD Cat Ranger.
Oh, yes.
So Cat essentially gets promoted to go and work with Commander Birdie, and somebody that she used to go to school with is working for Grum and attacks the Earth, and only she knows how to essentially counteract whatever technology he's doing. After seeing how much of a badass she is, Birdie's like, all right, hang on to this morpher. It only works for an hour. Use it wisely. But you would definitely benefit from this. And we benefit from seeing the fucking Cat Ranger.
Yeah, that helmet was dope.
Right? And it was this was our I would say this was our actual first Orange Ranger, because we got a primarily like the orange legs and then like a black and white kind of top business. So that would make Cat essentially the 8th Ranger of the season, but there's, I would say, 13 Rangers overall if you include the A squad.
Oh, damn. This is a very long season.
Tell me about it. But we got 2 different crossovers this season, both with the Dino Thunder. Yes, Dino Thunder Rangers. And the first one, they essentially get kidnapped and brought to the future. And then the second one, SPD has to go and see them in the past. So both of these team ups were really well done. And it gets a lot of shit for being corny, but I love the at the end of the one where SPD goes back to their Dino Ranger time, where they're all in the circle and they're like, no one gets inside. And they went around the whole circle and no one gets inside. No one gets inside. No one gets inside. Although they got inside. Spoiler alert. But it was still really cool.
It was at that moment they realized they fucked up.
Disappointingly enough, Disney, you fucked up in your ownership of Power Rangers, because you had a chance to have Jason David Frank come back for these crossovers, but apparently they wouldn't pay his airplane ticket, so he did not go and do it.
It was his voice, though, right? Or no, it wasn't even his voice.
I honestly can't remember. I don't think they used him enough.
I feel like it wasn't. Yeah, I feel like it wasn't his voice, and it was some really crappy. I'm gonna sound like JDF in the Black Ranger suit.
Yeah! Better late than never. You guys ready?
Shame on you, Disney.
In the process of all this, we find out that in their like big spaceship, Moira finds this like giant brain creature called Omni, which we find out is the actual big bad of the season. Yeah, like he's the big boss who has been behind all of this the whole time, even though they waited until the very end to mention it. Which kind of sucks, because you look at Grum most of the season and you're like, okay, this guy's pretty fucking badass. And then you're like, oh, he's just a lackey. Like, you would not follow Goldar into battle.
No.
You wait for Rita's orders.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, our friend Omni is the one really calling the shots. The A Squad sends out an SOS, and obviously B Squad jumps fucking on it. They're like, okay, finally, like, we found them. We haven't seen them all season. It turns out that it was a trap, and A Squad has been essentially working with Grum, kidnapping Kruger.
And with A Squad, we get essentially the first female Red.
Yep. The first female Red Ranger. And does she have a name? Probably not. Not important.
She did, and I forget it.
And they fight B Squad, and they B Squad loses. Very, very hardcore. Like A Squad is A Squad for a reason. I think this was the first instance of Power Rangers turning to the dark side of their own volition. There was no mind control. There was no like magic spell over them. They were essentially just corrupted by power. Broodwing ends up attacking the SPD headquarters, and Grum is in space with Kruger, essentially showing him that his wife has been alive and a prisoner with him the entire time. So Kruger, of course, absolutely gives Grum his ass handed on a silver fucking platter. And in the process of kicking his ass, cuts off his other horn, which apparently Kruger had cut off the first one in one of their previous battles long before he destroyed his planet. So
Crumb was a cool looking bad guy.
You know, for a villain who essentially became a lackey last minute, he looked badass.
See, yeah, it was like who? Him and Mesogog, dude. Mesogog was scary as shit too.
Grum's ship essentially turns into its own Megazord. Like Omni's up there controlling this Megazord. And like this thing is fucking huge in comparison to any of the Megazords that the Rangers have. We get some reinforcements during this final battle while like the SPD headquarters is being attacked. Birdie and who else? Like Silverback show up and help to make sure that SPD doesn't get taken over by the bad guys. Because we didn't have enough Power Rangers this season, we get our ninth and final Power Ranger for the SPD season, SPD Nova Ranger, who is also from the future, whose costume was actually really dope. Like she had a really cool like shieldy chest piece and fit into that like blue and gold motif that the Omega Ranger had.
Nova was cool. Nova had a dope helmet.
Right? Like the outfit itself is just really fucking cool. Grum gets his ass kicked. Kruger arrests him for all of the shenanigans he's been trying to pull this season. We essentially get the epilogue for our Rangers this season. Jack ends up meeting this girl and going off and kind of going back to what he was doing. He was never really cut out to be a police officer. He was just kind of going with it. So once he leaves, Sky becomes the new Red Ranger and Bridge becomes the new Blue Ranger. So he just works his way through all of them because, of course, he comes back for the once a Ranger, always a Ranger team up, and he's the Red SPD Ranger. So throughout time, he has worked his way up the ranks. Mr. Buttery himself.
Buttery.
It's buttery.
Buttery?
Buttery.
You know, I will say the villains, although were kind of meh for the season, like after finding out that we were just rooting for a lackey this whole time, like that's like me going, yay, Babu, yay, Squat. I feel like I just wasted all my fucking time. But other than that, they were a pretty formidable villain force. It was not like they were not accomplishing things throughout the season, like a Lord Zed where it was like, oh, every week you just get your ass kicked and your monsters are defeated. No, Grum was actually able to take some of the shit that he needed to do what he was trying to do. It's just a shame it was for nothing.
Yeah. But overall, I give SPD. I'll do a 7-9 out of 10 for SPD.
Okay. I'm going to go with a solid 8.5 on this one.
Right on.
I think that while there was a lot of filler episodes, a lot of it was something that eventually tied into the story. Like you can go back and say, okay, like that was a filler episode, but if it wasn't for that filler episode, we wouldn't have progressed a little bit at least. In
Great
that
season.
aspect. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Great season. In my opinion, 9 is too much. Personally, 9 is too much.
14 if you consider the A Squad too.
Yeah, that's too much. That's too much power. Too much Ranger, not enough power.
I'll agree with that.
But guys, from all of us here, Ranger Rabble and Nerd Daddy Productions, I'm Kyle D.
I'm Leo V.
SPD Emergency. Later.
Later.